Good evening, it's Joyful Christian Hermit. I've spent the last, really since Wednesday, sort of spinning my wheels here, not able to get much done. And I tried this new medication, went off my pain med, because this new medication supposedly, is to be wonderful with helping with pain, but it is a manufactured type of a drug, a medication. And so I thought, oh, good, I allowed myself to get my hopes up, which I haven't allowed for years. And so I was off my own pain meds for a day and a half, which my pain doctor didn't want me to do. He didn't want me to be in terrible pain. But I wanted to find out if my intestines is from opioid constipation, which seems not anything normal constipation that I've ever experienced in my life, or my children. Being a mother, babies or little children can get constipated. And even my mother, when she was in the nursing home, she never had gut attacks or anything like I have, where I get all distended out and it's blocked. I have a blockage going on in my lower intestines. So I don't know, but anyway, I thought, good, this is a chance to at least find out. And if it is, then I might have this medicine to use from here on out. But by today, I could not take the pain. It is not strong. Not for arachnoiditis, it isn't. And for 38 years, I've had arachnoiditis, so it progresses. It's worse and worse. But also, I did a little research on it. My pain doctor hadn't, I don't think. I'll have to call on Monday. But I had to go on. I'm not going to bother taking it because it can diminish kidney function. You are only to be on it no more than 14 days. That's all it's been tested for. That's all it's been approved for. That's all it was made for, was like post-operation, post-surgery, or like a injury of some sort that's temporary but bad pain. But it even says moderate to moderately severe pain. Well, a drug company saying that, you can count on, you're lucky if it would handle moderate pain. But my pain doctor said one of his patients took it right there in the office, and he gave me it in the office. Can you tell a difference right away? I said, well, no. And of course, I had my other medication in my system. But he says, oh, this other patient felt it immediately and said it was incredible how much less pain she felt. Well, it had to have been psychosomatic. But no, it's not going to do anything to help. So, unfortunately, but you can't take it for more than 14 days. And need to not take it then. So I realized some drug salesman came to the pain doctor, evidently, and gave him samples and told him how great it was, not telling him any information that it's not even approved for more than 14 days. I couldn't stay on it even if it was effective for me. So forget that, I don't know how I'm going to find out, why my intestines are doing this. I'm fairly sure it's from arachnoiditis, but I would like to know. Anyway, that was the week of 3 or 4 days. I took the samples and then took a day and a half of this medicine, Journaavx. And it cost me $30 with a coupon, which I was fortunate. I had some coupon that the pharmacy has to honor it. Otherwise, it's super expensive. But it says right in the information online about it from the company, not intended for chronic patients, chronic pain patients, only for temporary. So the drug dealer, the drug representative, the rep, pharmacy rep, pharmaceutical company rep, did not. He went to a pain doctor. He shouldn't have even gone to a pain doctor. They only have chronic pain patients. Wasn't at all suitable. And then you can tell I'm disappointed. I had let my hopes get up. Thought, oh, good, it'll help. And I made it through yesterday, okay, but I had like 4 or 5 big bowls of watermelon. I was probably on a sugar high or something to get through, but by this morning I woke up and I was in bad pain trouble, and I was most of the day then. Once you get into bad pain, it takes a while to get on top of it again. So I've had trouble getting the tile saw put together, and finally had a neighbor man come over. A bolt was supposed to come out where I could put a guard in and then put the bolt back in, and a screw this rubber little guard on the part of the saw. And another little piece went over it and clicked in the sides to really secure it so this one section doesn't get wet. Motor's in there, and the air for the motor is there. And I tried last night also. I put WD-40 on it, let it sit all night, tapped it with my tack hammer to try to jiggle it loose, tried different means of getting that bolt up. And this very strong man, he works on antique automobiles and things, very talented. He came over, very strong. He worked on it, he couldn't figure out. Well, the dogs. Lovey can open the patio door now, so they got out, but not for far. They stayed in the yard. But I had to get them in, and when I got back to the man, he said, well, it's just the bolt spinning at the bottom. There's no way to get it up. And so we slit this one rubber thing. Rather than having the hole and putting a screw in there to secure it, we just slit it and put it down over the screw and then put the guard over the top of that. Handled it that way, but even that, the final end portion that I needed to do for that saw, and it took me a long time yesterday with the saw because I am not gifted with putting things together. And I freeze up about it too. I get like, oh, I want to get this just right, or am I doing it right, or lack of confidence, plus it's not my gift to do technical things. So he was so kind to come over, and he brought a big piece of tile out. But by then the sun was so hot again. We're having very hot weather. But it was beating down on there. There was no way I could stay out in there because heat makes the tissues in our bodies swell. And for me, with my arachnoiditis, messed up nerves going off, sending signals all over, it presses on the nerves and I get in really super pain trouble. So I don't know how. I'm not getting much accomplished here. August came and went. That was my month to see if I could, make much progress. And I really haven't compared to what yet remains. I've had to hopscotch around to different projects depending on who would come to help me. And Sean, I think, is done. He made it to work this week. I found out he finally answered, but I can tell he doesn't want to do anything. He's having real problems. Please pray for him. And he's got an appointment at the VA on Tuesday to, I think they're going to try a different medication or just the ones he's on, because he's barely been able to go to work at his new job. I'm very concerned for him. He has tremendous anxiety issues, and I didn't realize just how bad that he struggles with structure, I think, and having to be for other people, expectations, and all of that. Even though he's a genius and so accomplished, something in him gets triggered, and he has these anxiety attacks. So he's trying so hard, and he's so bright. He's got this master's in cybersecurity, and he's really multi-bright on any topic. But so this Brian, another neighbor, will help me lift tile when I need to and help get it through the saw, the two by four pieces. And Brian asked, well, why did you get such heavy tile? He thinks it's maybe 50 pounds. He doesn't think it's 60 even. But I said, well, I didn't even look at the weight. I couldn't imagine. I didn't even realize it was 2 by 4 sheets of it. All I knew is it was it. It was going to be right and striking for that wall, that fireplace wall. And insets in the stairwell and above the entry window. I have insets of this tile. But Sean had to come, and they weren't even full pieces. He came, I think it was Thomas who helped me cut those with the little saw. Probably that's what made the blade dulled. But then Sean helped set them in once I had the openings just the way I wanted them. And well, they were openings that were already there in the wall from Thomas taking out way more sheetrock than necessary. And I probably should have just put the same sheetrock back in the openings and taped and sprayed. But I had already painted the wall, and it's a very treacherous wall with a 16-foot ladder in that stairwell to get up there, up to the top, and I didn't want to have to repaint. You have to paint a whole wall. You can't just repaint one section or you'll have lines, especially like a stairwell wall that has lots of light coming in on it. You can see everything. So we'll see how this looks. I have to do things according to what I can do. And so I had seen inset tile, or it came to mind or something, and I think I looked it up then and saw that it can be done. People have done it before. So even in a high-end home, so I'm going for it. I'll have to put trim around. So we'll see. And that even, I realized later that the studs or the wall, the sheetrock wasn't perfectly plumb. So my tile isn't, so I have to adjust the trim at the bottom. So we'll see how it turns out. But that, I haven't done much of anything. I haven't even nail gunned the trim in around the stairwell inset tile or above the entry window tile. So, but I'm praying that in the morning I'll get up and get going. The Lord's Day, I will celebrate by initiating the tile saw, praising God that I got at least a saw that will properly cut the tile. And so onward and forward, I will strive with doing work around here. And I've pushed out the upset, disappointment, I will call it, the disappointment that this drug was like a tease. This new medication, Journaavx, or Journaavx. It was a tease for me that I thought, oh good, something really that's going to help. And I won't have to take the medication either way then. I thought, oh, even if it is my arachnoiditis, I still wouldn't have to take opioid. But yes, I do. And I looked up, there's so many side effects to this other medication. If you aren't an addictive personality and you have serious pain, an opioid only has the constipation side effect. But this other has the kidneys, the liver, muscle spasms, nausea and vomiting, all this headache, all these lists of things, side effects. And the kidney lowered functioning is a reality. That's a pretty common thing with this medicine. But you're only on it for 14 days or less, like right after a surgery. And they developed it for people who fear opioids and don't want to take them. And after a surgery. But I'm telling you, a low-dose hydrocodone with Tylenol is far more effective than this medicine that's been created. And it's very expensive. But I guess, I don't know how I got this coupon. The pain doctor gave it to me. And the drug companies, or the insurance company and the pharmacy was supposed to honor it, so they did. So I'm only out $30 for that experiment. Could have been a lot worse. So I've sort of just been not getting anything done. Wednesday I had to shop, and an errand wears me out. Another day I've mentioned to you, I had to take the dogs for their grooming, and then that was the day I tried getting the saw put together, the tile saw. And I had other tasks. And then I had to do food preparation and get it frozen. So it's, being older, slower, resting also. There's not as much time, and I don't have the speed or the energy. And then when I was so sick today with pain, and yesterday I was pushing it. I was really pushing myself. Trying to think positively and using mind over matter to overcome the pain I was having, because this other medicine really doesn't. I wouldn't even bother with it. If you have a surgery and you need pain med afterwards, which most people do, just take your 3 days worth of, usually it's hydrocodone with a Tylenol in it, low dose. And don't worry about, you're not going to get addicted in 3 days' time. And especially if you have pain, real pain, and if you don't have addiction issues. So then, this is the other thing today, and really over the weekend, I'd gotten news from my cousin that my aunt, who's 102, that the hospice nurse had told my cousin she could be gone within 2 days, that she was in transition period to die. 2 days to 2 weeks she had. And that she'd had a hallucination on Wednesday. And was told that her mother had lost all bodily control. Well, my cousin was upset. She's got a lot of health issues. And she sees her mother once a week on Sundays for about an hour. It's all my cousin can handle with her own ailments. She's going to be 77 her first week in September. My cousin is. Her mother's 102. So, and she's the only living child. Her brother, Philip, passed, my cousin, when he was 18 of cancer. He was the one that was 5 days older than me. We were close. And this cousin and my next elder sister were like 2 weeks apart and close. But now this cousin is close with me. my sister had moved away, and she has anxiety and depression and doesn't really talk on the phone, and has her own friends with her husband that she's developed out in another state. And so they, that cousin and her, they lost contact. And my sister doesn't really talk on the phone. I think she has so much anxiety. It's too much for her. And depression. So she has her Bible study friends, I think, are her mainstays, and her children and grandchildren. So much suffering. So I'd been concerned, thinking about my aunt and thinking back of times with her. She's the aunt I was really closest to all through. And of course, obviously, she's lived the longest, so it was easier to, you continue being close to the one that you have left, the only living aunt or uncle left. And so concerned about my cousin, because she wanted to be there for her mother and knew it was going to really stretch her. So she went there today, Saturday, and her mother was just fine. In fact, very feisty. Very feisty. She had a temper in the dining room because the hospice had put her on pureed food rather than her trying to eat, because she has choking issues at 102. And so an aide sits with her, and I think the nursing home didn't want to have to bother using a person to be there with her when she's having her lunch too. And they pushed the hospice to bring in hospice to help things go easier. My cousin was told. And my mother had hospice, so I'm familiar. It's wonderful, but something's really haywire with this particular nurse hospice situation. I found out that 2 weeks, was it 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, the hospice person put my aunt on tramadol 3 times a day. That's highly addictive. It's years ago, they tried to, the drug company tried to tout that as a non-opioid pain reliever. It's an opioid, and it is so addictive. Worse than any opioid. Normal, natural opioid. And so my aunt has been on that, and that has bad side effects. Tramadol does. Get hallucination, dizziness, all kinds of things, but hallucinations. And as soon as my cousin told me about that she'd had a hallucination on this past Wednesday, and then I found out that they'd been having her on tramadol, my 102-year-old aunt, who doesn't really have pain, a little bit in her side, a little, arthritic pain. But my aunt never would take an opioid pill. She wouldn't. She would be in terror. She'd broken ribs one time, coughing so hard that she broke some ribs. Very painful, broken ribs are. And she refused low-dose Vicodin with Tylenol. Hydrocodone it is with Tylenol. Low dose. Would not take that. Took ibuprofen and gutted it out. And this hallucination, that's not like and she just had the one. But she's become more feisty and irritable with my cousin on the Sundays when she visits. And so today, my cousin, not knowing, thought that her mother only had a couple of days left to live, or possibly 2 weeks at all, gets there, and my aunt is just fine. I mean, for 102, she takes a wheelchair to the bathroom and can stand up and pivot and get on the throne, the toilet throne. and eats, now pureed, doesn't really have, sits on the side of the bed, pretty good for 102. Well, the hospice nurse says, well, she's also, she's losing her abilities, her bodily functions. Well, she wet one time when she stood up. Her bladder let. Well, my bladder's going from arachnoiditis. And I'm lucky if I get through a night without an accident. So, I'm 28 years younger than my aunt. So, no. And my cousin said she wondered, and she stayed 2 hours, wore my cousin out, to be with her mother, and then found that she was, being wheeled to the dining room to eat per usual, and had this really irrational, not a irrational, irritable anger at being given pureed food. She didn't want bowls. She wanted her regular meal like everybody else around her in the dining room, her friends. So, no, this is not a person who's in the throes of death. Then I found out, about that medication they've been giving my aunt. That's what's causing these things. The hallucination. She just had the one, but she's been on it. If it's built up in her system, it causes a serotonin syndrome with the brain. Too much serotonin in her brain, because this tramadol has a lot of that. Will increase that in the brain. You don't give it to elderly people. And they also have her scheduled for morphine in addition to tramadol. So I spent time on the phone today counseling my cousin. And my vibes and my little red flags went up the more she told me. And this is not right. It's not ethical to dope someone to death. So something's not right with the hospice nurse, I think. My cousin's going to find out the milligram, the dosage of the tramadol. She's been given it 3 times a day for 2 months. And things are starting to happen that when I did my research, it's all part of the side effects of too much. And it's not recommended for people 75 and over. And definitely you don't give it with morphine, and not to someone elderly. She doesn't have pain. She doesn't need morphine. But this hospice nurse is, pushing these things. So I'm curious if any of you have any experience with, I don't think she's one of these nurses who's an angel of death type, but she may have other subtle subconscious reasons for over-medicating someone. Yes, she's old, but and my aunt is, my cousin says she's even asked her daughter, what are you doing here today? What's going on? Because she only goes on Sundays. It's a schedule. My aunt doesn't want her daughter worn out. My cousin has a lot of health problems, more than her mother had. Her mother didn't have. To live 102, she's been in great shape. But, so I suggested to my cousin just visit her tomorrow on Sunday, and then not Monday. She was going to go all 3 days. My cousin was going to put herself out to be with her dying mother. How cruel is that? The hospice nurse, something's off. Either they are trying to, do inpatients and get rid of them so they can have more. They get paid money for each patient. Hospice does. And often the people will leave them in their wills. So my aunt isn't. Maybe they want to move her along faster and get one that will. I don't know what's going on, but it feels bad to me. And it was an irony that my cousin called with concerns. And I started doing the research, and this isn't good at all. So, to be continued, a little mystery. We're going to find out what the doses are, including the dosage for the morphine. And she hasn't been given that yet, but it's, you don't give more, it's, both of them are opioids. You don't double opioid, and you're not to give tramadol anyway to an older person. Not the tramadol. It has too many side effects that are bad. But I'm convinced that that hallucination she had the other day is just the beginning of that serotonin syndrome side effect and the hallucinations that go with tramadol. Hope she doesn't. And she also had lost control of her arms and her hands and legs. It's not my aunt. And was kicking and batting around. And her mind is clear. So it's not that. It's not dementia or Alzheimer's or anything. She knew today was Saturday and her daughter shouldn't have been there. What are you doing here? It's Saturday. You come on Sundays. My aunt's very regimented and organized, always has been, and in control, like a lot from that era, especially, in control, in charge. And once things done properly, so she didn't want her food in a bowl, but she ate it. She did eat it after she had really an irritable, atypical outburst. So, we'll figure it out. We'll find out, won't we? But I had texted later to my cousin then, when I found out more research on these things, that, what was I going to say? Oh, that I feel that God was trying to warn my cousin. I hadn't heard from my cousin in a while. Then, a few days ago, I get this call that or a text that her mother has taken a bad turn for the worse. My cousin hadn't been out there. It was during the week. Wednesday it was. She got a call from the hospice nurse telling her your mother has maybe 2 days or up to 2 weeks. And putting her on, getting her set for morphine. My cousin had no idea 2 months ago what tramadol was. She doesn't look up all this stuff like me. But I knew about tramadol. I'd had it once years ago. I was given tramadol. Oh, it's the next best drug, and it's non-addictive. Well, yes, it is. It's highly addictive. Tramadol is. And if you go into ER for some trouble, they'll ask you, do you want tramadol or? It's an either or med. It's not a both. You don't double opioids on people. Not somebody 102. So to be continued on that. Sometimes you get employees, even a hospice worker maybe, who has a bugaboo and pushes, or a sense of it's empowering, especially in our day and age when people are freaked out about opioids and have even ignorance about opioids, think they're worse, and you're going to be addicted in 3 days if you take one, or It's bad. Don't when you're in horrible pain, and then people have strokes because their blood pressure shoots up with pain. Your blood pressure goes up with pain, and your temperature goes up with pain. And you put your body into organ stress if it's severe pain. So I had another aunt who had a massive stroke when she was 89 because she refused to take some low-dose Vicodin with Tylenol that her doctor had prescribed for her for 3 days. She was to take it for 3 days because she was having severe pain, sciatica pain, very severe. And she stroked, massive, nearly died. She had to be in ICU for 2 weeks or more, and because otherwise she was in great shape. Reading and going out and doing all kinds of stuff, independent, living alone in New York, a suburb of New York City, and ended up then having to have constant care, learning to speak again, learning to walk again, learning to eat again, and had to give up reading because it blinded her, nearly blinded her. But she would have had to learn to read again, learn how to read. She was a voluminous reader and avid reader, I guess you would say. So, and she kept going. She lived to be nearly 97, but impaired drastically. What a mistake she made, because she was fearful of becoming addicted. And also just the stigma that has been put on opioids, hydrocodone, or some of these that are, yes, they're controlled substances, but they work. That's the thing. Once again, I've had that experience. And they have no side effects but constipation. And the constipation, honestly, is not like mine. This has got to be the arachnoiditis, which is what arachnoiditis does after so long a time. And my bladder's going too, but I can't prove it. And these doctors haven't heard of arachnoiditis, or if they have, they don't know much about it. And even my pain doctor looked it up, and he still was, well, surely it's got to be something else. They're so unfamiliar with it and don't have any experience with it that they want to stay with what they have experience with, which is more typical types of things. So, but this situation with my aunt has been very distressing. But I mean, I'm not there. All I thought that the Lord was, and for my cousin and to open up about these things with me today on the phone, something in her felt a little odd about it. Well, she didn't know anything about tramadol, and thought that was okay. But no, that's worse as far as the side effects, and more addictive by far. So she's gonna have a time of it. But I told my cousin, you need to get her off that, or be prepared for more. And the thing I also resent is that they don't tell. My aunt was adamant before she wouldn't take anything. Even when she had those broken ribs and stuff, she wouldn't want to have it. She's so lucid, and she can't read because her eyes are so dimmed now. But she wants to study some genealogy, and wants to get information on one of the ancestor names, and just going on, living long. So they should say, do you want to be put on this med, and what it is, and that it's an opioid, even though back 18 years ago, when they came out with it in 2005 or 2004, somewhere way back, early 2000s, they tried to claim it was not. And they got called out on it for that. People online called it the devil drug, and that it was horrible to get off. And I was put on it, innocently enough, by a pain doctor in the Midwest, and it gave me seizures. Seizures is one of the side effects. I had terrible seizures. I had to go off it. I'd only taken 5. I'd been on it 5 days, 5 pills. It was 1 a day or something like that. And I had withdrawals. It made me sick. And I wanted to get on because I didn't like it anyway. But it made me feel sort of energized in an odd way. So I liked that. But it was nothing but a strong addictive opioid. And more addictive than any of the others, of the natural ones. I prefer a natural one. More natural, anyway, than all man-made ingredients or man-concocted. And a lot of these new things they're out there on the market a little too soon. And I was on one years ago that ended up being taken off the market. I stopped it myself because it was just so expensive. And I didn't have insurance then. But I worried about it. I was told, oh, this will really help you. It was, I think, some kind of anti-inflammatory, not meloxicam, and something else that was supposed to help with nerve pain, not gabapentin. I forget the name of it. It's off market. It's been off the market since maybe, well, before the beginning of the new century, new millennium. So it was off soon after it was introduced, and because it was so bad. Oh, I think it's better to wait a few years when they have new meds anyway, but that's the deal. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm convinced God had my cousin call me today, and the more she would say, the more I would say, this is not right. Something's not right here. She's not near death unless she would die suddenly, heart failure or stroke. But she's able to eat. She's not bedridden. She's sharp and feisty, too feisty, which bothers me because that's one of the symptoms of serotonin syndrome. Oh, she needs to get off that one. And no way have another one introduced, morphine, on top of tramadol for somebody 102. What it does, it represses the breathing. That's what this woman wants. And sometimes with hospice, I know they do this. They give these medications if the person has a day or 2 left to help them relax, to ease them into death. I don't go for that myself either, not unless they're in terrible pain. My mother was in excruciating pain. She had pulmonary fibrosis. She had never been a smoker, but her lungs were scarring over from the bottom up, and by the end she barely could breathe. And plus it was painful how the lungs scarred over, the tissues inside. Excruciating. So she needed pain med. And they gave it to her. But she knew what it was. And she needed it, so she didn't mind. And in fact, she said she wished that I could have some pain med. That was back when I couldn't. And I would have terrible pain and terrible pain sieges when I couldn't visit her for like 5 days and stuff at a time. So, because I tried to be there every single day because I'd promised my dad on his deathbed that I would help take care of Mom, make sure she was Somebody was there with her all the time. And I did pretty well getting there most of the time, except the pain sieges. So I would lay on her bed, she would be in a recliner. And I'd read to her psalms and different things. So it really was a beautiful time in many, many ways, and help her get through. It was a horrible, horrible death to have to get through, endure. But no. So anyway, I just pray for these different situations that we see how things come up just out of the blue, and God is utilizing us then. So I spent a great deal of time today researching these things and writing it to my cousin so she'd have it in writing, so she can hopefully make a decision. But what gets me the most is that a patient like my aunt, who is very lucid, aware, and is paying $11,000 a month for this nursing home room, healthcare room. She deserves to be able to know what she is being given and to say, I want it or I do not. Because she always handled her pain with Tylenol or ibuprofen. But these other meds will suppress her breathing. They will slow her organs down because she's not moving around much anyway. So they can affect, unless you're up and active and moving around and keeping busy. If you're bedridden, well, she isn't bedridden, but pretty much she sits on the edge of the bed or goes to the bathroom or to the dining hall, but that's about it. But she's not what you think of as a bedridden. She's not, she keeps busy talking and reading, or people read to her, but the volunteers come. So she wants to get into one of the family's ancestors and get some research on them, and wishes she had a book she could read about them and things like that. So fixated on it, obsessive over it, which is a tramadol trait, side effect, to become manic like that. So, and to have extreme desire for a new goal, a new creative vista to conquer, and so she's to an extreme. So that's what's going on. And God is going to work it out. He wanted it brought to the fore. It's unasked for assisted suicide. Doing that takes time, but evidently the hospice nurse thought that she could get it accomplished within 2 to 14 days to have her dead. It's creepy. I advised my cousin, given all of her health things and just her energy and her focus on her mother, just to cancel hospice for now. She has a daughter who's a very experienced registered nurse, and I think taking courses to be an NP, nurse practitioner. So she doesn't live in the area, but she could be the consultant, and she's close enough she could drive and assess her grandmother when it comes time for hospice. Really time for hospice. Not just because the nursing home's understaffed and they want hospice to take over my aunt, who can be demanding and has gotten worse being on the tramadol. So, and I don't know if it's being demanding, but she's paying a lot of money, and she wants to have treatment, proper treatment, and if she needs an aide, that an aide will come, etc. So I found this. This is by Saint Athanasius. I thought it was sort of connected here. Live each day wait, let me get it opened up. Increase each day your ardor for eternal life. That will help us get through our death processes. And my aunt would like to not have to live so long. She's starting to realize she has for a couple of years. Part of her wanted to make it to 100. Yes, when you're in your 90s or late 90s, that's sort of a benchmark goal that people want. I wouldn't, but I understand it. I understand. But after that, it was like, oh my, I wasn't counting on this. And she doesn't like it that all of her hard work and savings and investments and things is just being drained out. She was very good with investments. She was a school teacher, and her husband had left, and she had nothing. She built up whatever she had on her own by the grace of God. By the grace of God. So, here's this from Athanasius. It's one of his, it's from the life of St. Anthony. He wrote the first biography of St. Anthony, the desert hermit. So this is about St. Anthony when he refers to he. One day when he, St. Anthony, had gone forth because all the monks had assembled to him and asked to hear words from him, St. Anthony spoke to them in the Egyptian tongue as follows. The scriptures are enough for instruction, but it is a good thing to encourage one another in the faith and to stir up with words. Stir up our souls and our minds and our hearts with words, our emotions and energy with words. Wherefore you, as children, carry that which you know to your father. Their father, that was a term for like their spiritual director, their mentor. And I, as the elder, share my knowledge, because Anthony was sort of the leader. So many people came wanting to be hermits, and they got different mentors to train them. Fathers, they were called, quote unquote, desert fathers, and to train them. And then St. Anthony was like, it became a monastery, an order type, and he was like the superior then. What did he just called himself the elder. And I, as the elder, share my knowledge and what experience has taught me with you. Let this especially be the common aim of all, neither to give way, having once begun, nor to faint in trouble, not to give way once begun. Okay, Lord, I'll keep working. Well, I don't know what else to do yet, so I'll keep trying to get the work done and to cut the tile tomorrow and move forward on the fireplace. And neither give way, nor to faint in trouble. When we get trouble facing us, don't falter with it. Don't faint and grow weak. Nor to say, we have lived in the discipline a long time, but rather as though making a beginning daily, let us increase our earnestness. So, and I can do that too. I can think, I've been a hermit for nearly 26 years. That's why I'm this or that, or not in a strict area. Well, I can't with my health issues, but I could do better. See? And he's saying, don't get complacent over time, just because you've been doing something a long time. He says, make it as a beginning, a new beginning daily. Let us increase our earnestness. For the whole life of man is very short, measured by the ages to come. Wherefore all our time is nothing compared with eternal life. And in the world, everything is sold at its price, and a man exchanges one equivalent for another. But the promise of eternal life is bought for a trifle. It's for love of God we have eternal life. It's a grace given us. But in the world, we pay for everything. And in life itself, there's this temporal life. We work for everything, or should be. So, I think there's more to this one. Yes. Though we fought on earth, we shall not receive our inheritance on earth. But we have the promises in heaven. And having put off the body, which is corrupt, we shall receive it incorrupt. That's in heaven. Eternal life. And forever. Eternally. Wherefore, children, let us hold fast our discipline, and let us not be careless. For in it the Lord is our fellow worker, as it is written, to all that choose the good, God worketh with them for the good. It's Romans 8:28. This is very good. Let us hold fast to our discipline. And our part of discipline is also will and determination. Having a strong will and determination to discipline, to structure, and to what right is always right. Let us not be careless. For in it is our fellow worker. For in our daily lives, in our discipline, in our existence, is our fellow worker. Who is our fellow worker? This makes me feel reassured, because I often say, when I'm up against a conundrum with my woodwork, my construction stuff, or putting tiles up and things, Jesus and St. Joseph were carpenters and stonemasons. And I bet they knew well how to use tools. I'm going to remind myself of that too, and to put tools together if they needed to. So to all that choose the good, God worketh with them for the good. So that comes back to intention. For every action, every task, every project, everything you offer, even thoughts or writing something, or if you have to give a speech or something, make the intention something good for God. Omnia pro Deo, all for God. And tell him in advance, Lord, I am doing this for such and so intention. I did some things this week, worked on some things for the intention of the families in Minneapolis, and that all the parishioners and even the whole city and our whole country, for the horrible killing of 2 children and injuring many more. And I think there were 5 adults who were injured and 15 children, 3 adults, 15 children injured, and 2 children killed. And by a young man who had gender dysphoria, wanted to be a girl, and his mother went along with that before he was of age, and he got his name changed and became a girl, grew his hair and pierced his ear, tried to look like a girl, and he didn't. His facial structure and everything was a man's, but he wanted that, but he still wasn't happy. He had lots of anger, loads of anger, and wanted to see children suffer. So he did, shoot through stained glass windows. And then finally he found a church door that was full glass that he could shoot through and step in and see the evil and the perversion of what he had done, which he wanted to see, but then he shot himself to death in the head. So all of that horror, all the other children and adults in that church, older people for daily mass, and the school teachers and the priests and deacon and all those other children in the grades in the K through 8 parish school will have that trauma and see it and hear it the rest of their lives. So as many people in this country and even in the world were praying for that, that was one of the things I offered as a prayer intention, an intention for my tasks I was working on. And then I focused extra much to do a beautiful job as a prayer for those children, especially the children, but also the adults. And the first responders who had to go in there and witness all that. The police and the EMS and some parents, people from the neighborhood came rushing when they realized it was gunfire, and went in and tried to console injured children and help others, get out, get away from it. But I don't do enough. I need to retrain myself. I used to go through a training period, and I think I need to redo that. It needs to be a refresher course for me. Like my video, I should do an intention. Well, I'm going to do it now for this situation with my aunt to be worked out. It's the intention of this video that good come of it. Also for the hospice nurse, that she slow herself down from whatever's causing this, probably something subconscious in her, to want to hasten elderly people's deaths. My cousin said, well, she's probably doing this to other patients. I said, probably is. But I said, you know for sure your mother would want to be on those meds. She could ask her, and she'd say, absolutely not. I hope she does ask. Because my aunt's the one who's the patient and paying the money. She deserves it's her right. She's fully cognizant, not confused, except when she had that hallucination and lost her arms and her feet and legs. And I guess that was when the nurse decided, well, the hospice nurse, that she had lost all her faculties. Well, she hadn't. It was a brief time, and it was a one-off so far. But there are other signals. The obsession, manic kind of thing of wanting a productive project. She's just obsessed with it, and getting information and to have someone read to her, and of a line of relatives, a family name from ancestors. And so, yeah, and the other things too, the hallucination and the irritability. It's it's something, and I don't know, I suppose if she could walk, she would be dizzy or something because of that tramadol. Or she's adapted to it by now some, but it's going to be harder to get her off of it. But it's harmful to her organs and to her breathing. And the only reason you give morphine to an elderly patient if they are in moderate to severe breathlessness, having breathing issues, because the morphine will help open up and relax the lungs. But you don't give it to them in order to repress and relax their young lungs. It's if they're in a trauma with it, if they're tightening up so much because of pain or whatever else, like my mother's lungs, horribly painful. So that helped her breathe better. A little, any little bit helped her until she could breathe no more. So there's, and the other reason for the morphine, what was that? Oh, extreme pain. If they're in extreme pain. My hint is not at all. So, and she might be, if she gets off that tramadol, have to go back to taking Tylenol or ibuprofen. That's what handled before. Or she'd be better off with like a half dose, half of a pill of 100 milligram pill of hydrocodone with Tylenol. Or 50 milligrams even, with just now and then situational pain. Oh, merciful heavens, dear Lord, let us move on with what we can do for living and dealing with situations like this, and do our best with others, and then move on through and do the right thing by the elderly also. They have a right to know what they're being given and a right to say they want it or do not want it once they know exactly what they've been given. The rights of the elderly. God bless His real presence in us, and we all keep praying, and we all keep making holy intentions for our prayers, and for our everyday lives. Make it all a prayer, an intended prayer for this, that, or whatever you want, for the glory of God, and in gratitude to God for hearing our prayers and helping us, listening, speaking to us, and helping guide us in how to handle situations. God bless His real presence in us and in one another. Jesus is in my aunt. Jesus is in the hospice nurse, in my cousin, in me, in all the people around that situation, in the nursing home people who love to have hospice come in even early because it's more help for them. They're understaffed despite getting all this money. But the investors, the board people have to be paid. So it doesn't always go to the nurses. We don't realize nursing homes have become like money-making, profit-making corporations. Even the ones affiliated with churches. This one's affiliated with Methodist Church, or it had been. Now it's very loosely so, but they still keep the title and the connection, because people trust it then if it's their church or belongs to a church. When no, we have to be very wide-eyed and shrewd and prudent and silent as a dove, and what was it? Clever as a snake or something. Shrewd as a snake. No, snakes aren't shrewd. Well, you're all probably telling it to me. You know what I mean? Till next time. Thanks for prayers, and thanks for all the comments too. I haven't answered the last ones from today, but I appreciate the comments.